Welcome to a Depth Dive. Today, we're taking a serious look at understanding yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not in that, typical self-help way. This is more about digging into the core of who you are.
Yeah, not just the surface stuff.
Exactly. To really build a life that actually truly fits you.
And our source material for this, it's really fascinating. It's excerpts from a chapter in Brianna Wiest's book, 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think.
Right.
And the chapter title kind of says it all. Things you need to know about yourself before you'll have the life you want.
It's pretty direct and powerful, I think, because it immediately cuts through a lot of that noise.
Definitely.
That sort of Western obsession with just the external stuff, the big job titles, the perfect image, that idea of a big life based only on how it looks.
Right. Instead, this source insists we focus on the gritty reality of our own internal world and our actual daily life.
Yeah, the day-to-day.
And so the mission here is exactly that, to unpack these essential questions the source poses, questions designed for some really radical self-reflection, maybe even uncomfortable reflection sometimes.
Sure. The chapter even kicks off with that really potent C.G. Jung quote.
Oh yeah, the one about the unconscious.
That's the one. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So this whole deep dive, it's basically a guide using these questions to try and shine a light on that unconscious part of ourselves.
Okay, so let's jump in. Where does the source start? It seems to ground us first
Yeah.
in the immediate reality.
It does. And the first question seems almost too simple, but it's actually quite profound.
Which is,
What do you want your daily tasks to be?
okay. That's a real perspective shift, isn't it?
Totally.
Because we get so caught up in what we want to be, like job titles or these vague ideas like, I want to help people.
Well, help people. But what does that actually look like day to day?
Exactly. The source reminds us that most of our waking life is spent doing specific things. Is it, sitting at a computer for 8 hours?
Or is it face-to-face interaction, physical work,
Yeah.
dealing with endless emails, how much meeting time, how much downtime?
It forces you to think about the actual texture of your day.
And this point from the source, I think it's critical. When you decide what you want the reality of your day-to-day to look like, the tasks, the environment, the pace, you are literally building the existence you want.
From ground up.
Yeah, it's the actual foundation, not just the fancy roof.
And right after that, the source asks something related, but a bit different. What kind of person do you want to be?
And it's careful to contrast that with asking what titles you want.
Yes, that distinction feels key. It's not, I want to be a CEO or I want to be a writer.
No, it's about the qualities you bring to whatever you're doing. Are you, kind, attentive, resilient, understanding?
Or you may be distracted,
Yeah.
easily annoyed, always rushing.
Yeah.
The source puts it really strongly. You ultimately are defined not by what you do, but how you do it.
Wow. That lands hard.
It does. And thinking about that helps you define your basic approach to living, really. No matter what job you have or don't have, it brings it back inside to your state of being.
Okay, so we've got the daily reality, the tasks, and then the kind of person we are while doing them. Where does the source take us next? It sort of zooms out a bit.
It does. It moves towards thinking about impact, legacy, and also maybe our more inherent nature.
So the next question.
What do you want to be remembered for?
Ooh. Okay, that's a big one. This is where the author gets you thinking about impermanence, right?
Exactly. And it uses this really stark contrast. Like, do you want your legacy to be about, I don't know, a small pant size or a super successful job that maybe cost you your relationships?
Versus being remembered for being loving or kind, someone who genuinely cared about people more than, say, status.
Right. And the insight is that your life, your real impact, often comes down to how you influence others, usually through those everyday interactions.
And just the courage you live with day to day.
Thinking about your legacy like that, it can really clarify what actually matters to you now, in the present.
That makes sense. Then, following that, the source asks something that feels maybe a little lighter. What comes most effortlessly to you?
Yeah, this one challenge is that common idea we seem to have, that anything really important has to be hard.
That suffering is required for meaning.
Kind of.
That,
The source suggests we sometimes even, like, make things harder if we think they're important, as if the struggle itself gives it value.
which is a weird habit when you think about it.
Totally. So
Yeah.
the counter idea here is pretty freeing. Maybe it's actually really smart to figure out what you do
Right.
easily, naturally.
And then lean into that. Capitalize on it instead of pretending it needs to be a grind.
Exactly. Don't fake the effort if it's not there.
Hmm.
Finding those effortless strengths might show you paths where, fulfillment and ease actually go together.
It flips that whole no pain, no gain thing around.
Pretty much.
Okay, now it feels like the source shifts gears again, dives deeper into like our core beliefs, inner drivers.
Yeah. This next section gets really fundamental, starting with, what do you even unconsciously believe that your existence is about?
Whoa, okay, that's, yeah, big.
And it's not about finding some universal truth.
Right.
It's about uncovering the personal dogma or belief system you operate from, whether you realize it or not.
And the source argues this belief is huge because it shapes, well, everything, how you approach your whole life.
Absolutely. It uses a clear example.
Mm.
If you fundamentally believe your fate is yours to choose, you'll likely act with more agency. You'll claim your power.
Whereas if you unconsciously believe life just sort of happens to you.
You might end up feeling like a victim. Yeah. And the source pushes further with follow-ups like, what do you think you're here for? What's the point of it all?
Exploring that core belief, that feels like the bedrock, doesn't it? The starting point for living intentionally.
Definitely seems that way. It sets the stage for everything else.
So building on those underlying beliefs, the next question is maybe more practical about daily action. Why do you do what you do each day?
This is about identifying your main motivators. Like, what's really driving the bus?
Are you chasing a certain feeling, like a high? Is it mostly about money, security, or just plain survival?
And the source is clear. There's no judgment here. It's not about right or wrong answers. The key is just knowing. Be honest with yourself about what really pushes you.
And there's a practical angle too, right? Like even basic drivers needing to pay the rent, for example, can be used constructively.
Yeah, exactly. That need can fuel passion projects on the side or give you the stability to pursue other things. The point isn't to fight your core motivations, but understand them. Use them.
Got it. So understanding your why, it grounds you, gives you direction.
Connects the outer actions to the inner energy source.
Yeah.
Okay, so for another angle on our inner world, especially the less conscious bits, the source asks about fantasy.
Daydreams.
Yeah. Specifically, in your fantasy daydreams, who and what are you, and how do other people regard you?
Huh. Okay, that's an interesting way in.
It really is. The source suggests these recurring daydreams are like little windows into our subconscious drives. And, crucially, into what we feel we lack.
What we're seeking from others.
Exactly. Are people in your daydreams admiring your intelligence, your looks, your success, your creativity? What is it they're giving you?
And the conclusion the source draws is that these fantasies show what you crave. And the real work is then figuring out how to give that to yourself, how to feed that need internally instead of always looking outside for validation.
Right. Stop chasing the external reflection and cultivate the internal substance.
Yeah.
Analyzing those daydreams, it's like a shortcut to hidden desires and unmet needs.
Okay. Now we get to a question that I suspect might make some people squirm a bit.
Yeah, this one can be uncomfortable. The source looks at our reactions to others and asks, what do you dislike most about other people?
Right. And the challenging idea here is
That the things that really push your buttons, the things that truly irritate or anger you and others, often reflect something about yourself that you haven't owned up to.
a variation of something you haven't acknowledged in yourself. Ouch.
Yeah. And the source even gives a kind of litmus test for it. How strong is your reaction?
The more vehemently you deny it.
The more intensely you're probably avoiding looking at that part of yourself. The source actually says anger recognition.
Meaning you don't get really angry about things you don't, on some level, recognize as having some truth or relevance to you.
Very much. And so the path to growth, or maybe healing, lies in that uncomfortable mirror. Pay attention to what you judge harshly in others.
To figure out what you need to address in yourself.
Exactly. Avoiding it just wastes energy, the source argues, and holds you back from the life you want. It's tough, but maybe essential.
Okay, shifting perspective again. Moving from those internal patterns to the external world of challenges. The source asks, what is worth suffering for?
This question comes from a core idea in the source. Basically, everything involves some kind of difficulty.
Nothing's easy all the time.
Right. Think about it. A bad relationship is obviously hard. But building and keeping a good one, that takes real effort, Navigating conflict, compromise,
Yeah.
that's hard too in a different way.
Or being broke is hard. But as the source points out, achieving huge success brings its own set of intense pressures and difficulties. Also hard.
So the insight isn't about trying to escape hardship. That's impossible.
It's realizing you don't choose if you suffer, but you do choose what you suffer for.
You choose your hard. That's the phrase.
I like that. It's empowering, actually. It shifts the focus from avoidance to intentional choice, choosing meaningful struggles.
Precisely. Okay, and then the final question. This one feels like it goes to the absolute deepest level. The source asks, what owns you in this life?
Wow, what owns you? Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It's pointing towards that one core thing. Maybe it's a deep fear of failure, of intimacy, of being alone. Maybe it's a tie to your past you can't shake.
Or maybe low self-worth, an addiction, a really tangled relationship dynamic.
Yeah, something that feels like it has a fundamental grip on you. At a visceral level, the source calls it the root pattern, the thing that keeps showing up again and again, maybe in different disguises.
And the conclusion the source reaches here is what's pretty profound, isn't it? It's not necessarily about getting rid of it entirely.
Right. That might not even be possible or even the point. Instead, it's about understanding it, really looking at it. So you can potentially, and this is a source's phrase, wield them for a greater purpose.
Wield them, like use the energy or the insight from that struggle.
Kind of. Find the hope, the understanding, the meaning within that struggle. The job isn't necessarily figuring out why it owns you, but finding the purpose you can derive from grappling with it.
That's a very different way to think about our biggest challenges.
It really is. And identifying this core driver is so crucial because, according to the source, this pattern influences so much of what you do and how you react. Understanding it is key to transformation.
Okay, wow. We've really moved through 10 incredibly deep questions here from this source, each one peeling back another layer.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. But the core message running through them all is pretty clear, doesn't it?
Which is?
That building the life you genuinely want, it doesn't start with the outside stuff, the titles, the image, the accomplishments.
No, it starts, like the source keeps emphasizing, with really deep self-knowledge.
It's that young idea again, making the unconscious conscious. That's where the real power lies.
So as you listening reflect on this deep dive, on these questions from Brianna Wiest's work, maybe consider this thought. What if the very things you find most difficult, whether it's that quality you just can't stand in other people or that one core pattern you feel really owns you,
Yeah.
what if they aren't just obstacles, not just things to get rid of or push away? What if they are actually potentially the most powerful guides you have?
The most powerful tools.
Exactly. The most powerful tools for shaping the life you truly desire. If you're just willing to look closely enough and try to understand them,